Every sunrise means something different. For some, it's quiet coffee and conference calls. For others, it's the roar of a lawnmower and the ache of another day of grind. Every sunrise paints a different world for different men. This story isn't for those born with silver spoons, nor for those who always knew their path. This is for the worker, the striver, the one who feels the ache in his bones at the end of the day and wonders if there isn't a better way to live, to earn, to truly own his future. I was that worker. My name is Alex, and for years, my alarm clock was the groan of a cold engine starting at 4 a.m. My office a beat-up pickup truck piled high with mowers, trimmers, and rakes. The smell of gas and oil, freshly cut grass, and sweat were my constants. My hands, once soft, became maps of calluses, scratches, and scars, trophies of countless hours spent taming unruly landscapes. I cut grass, thousands of lawns of all sizes, from tiny backyard patches in crowded neighborhoods to sprawling, endless estates. I earned my money, every single dollar, through pure sweat and muscle. And every single night, lying on my old bed, feeling my aching back and burning arms, a silent question echoed in the quiet darkness. Is this it? Is this all I can ever achieve in life? I saw money, yes, but it flowed through my fingers, barely keeping pace with basic bills, never accumulating into anything substantial for the future. I watched others, the very people whose lawns I manicured, live lives of apparent ease. They didn't punch clocks, haul heavy machinery, or toil under the sun and rain. Their money seemed to work for them, effortlessly, silently, like an unceasing machine. What was their secret? It wasn't taught in any school I knew, not the kind of book smarts I could ever hope to catch up on. I needed something practical, something real, something that would teach my money how to grow, how to multiply, rather than just vanish with every bill. I needed my money to work harder than me. And then I met the old man, Mr. Harrison. He was everything I wasn't, precise to the millimeter where I was practical, obsessively demanding where I was merely efficient, and a master of a world I barely understood, the world of assets. He didn't offer direct advice. He didn't preach. He simply existed, an enigma behind the meticulously manicured hedges of his perfect estate, as if he were an extension of the property itself. But in his unspoken demands, in the very details he obsessed over, lay the first clues to a different kind of wealth, a wisdom passed down not through textbooks, but through a relentless pursuit of what truly matters, lasting value. I didn't know it then, but this obsession with a millimeter of grass would become the first step in a transformation that would change everything. This isn't just a story about cutting grass. It's a journey from the raw, physical grind of working for wages, labor, to the quiet, strategic power of assets and making money work for you, leverage. It's about seeing the true value hidden in plain sight, about understanding that the real secret isn't how hard you work, but how smart your money works. This is the story of how a mower man, through the unlikely mentorship of an old man, began to unlock the smart landlord secret. The insistent growl of my lawnmower was the soundtrack to my life. Every morning, long before the city stretched awake, I fired up my old machine, dragging it across 100 lawns. From tiny backyard patches to sprawling, emerald estates, I worked for money, every single dollar earned through raw sweat and muscle. Sweat, a constant companion, always plastered my faded t-shirt to my back, but my eyes never strayed from the cut. Every stroke had to be precise, every blade of grass in its place. I'm Alex, an immigrant, barely into my 20s, but life had already etched lines of resilience onto my face. I came here for a better life, and lawn care, despite its grueling demands, gave me a foothold, a steady income. I earned good money, more than I'd ever dreamed back home. Every dollar was meticulously saved, a piece sent to my family, another carefully tucked away for a future I still couldn't clearly see. Friends joked I was the millionaire of mowers because I rarely rested. I was the oldest son, and the quiet burden of responsibility rested heavily on my shoulders. Not only could I not stop, I dared not stop. My day started before dawn, when the streets were still empty and dew clung to the leaves. My old pickup, loaded with equipment, was my mobile office. I'd gulp down gas station coffee and cold sandwiches in silence. My clients were varied. Some cheerful old ladies offered cold water and kind words. There were friendly young families who simply needed the job done right. But then there were the demanding ones, who scrutinized every square inch of their perfectly manicured lawns, as if each blade of grass was a work of art. I learned to please them all, because every lawn meant another meal, another step toward a savings goal that felt perpetually out of reach. But after each day, when the mower fell silent and fatigue settled deep in my bones, a gnawing worry began. I'd look at my calloused hands, maps of endless labor. My back ached, my arms burned. How long can I truly keep this up? I asked myself. A year? 5? 10? What happens when my body breaks down, when I can't work anymore? What happens when that weekly paycheck stops flowing? I realized I was trading my life, my youth, my very physical ability for a paycheck. And the thought of an uncertain future, without the strength to work, terrified me. It was an invisible trap I was caught in. That fear sharpened recently, after visiting old Uncle José. He was a fellow immigrant, a seasoned landscaper just like me. But now, he sat confined to an armchair, legs swollen, hands trembling, utterly unable to work. "Alex," Uncle José rasped, his voice rough with age and a lifetime of toil. "Don't become me. This back, these legs, they won't last forever. You have to find another way." His words echoed in my head. I saw my own future, a body that couldn't work, with nothing else to replace that sole source of income. This was the trap of working only for wages, a trap that workers like us fall into. This was the fundamental difference between the rich and the working class that no school had ever clearly explained. Going back to school for a new career? Impossible. I lacked the degrees, and the language barrier, though shrinking, was still a high wall. Most importantly, there was the financial burden. I couldn't afford to waste time or money on paper qualifications that offered no guarantee. I needed something practical. A concrete path to turn the money I was earning through sweat into something that could make money for me. Something no one could take away, nothing that could break down, even if my health failed. That desire burned hotter than any muscle ache. I'd scrolled through online investing videos, but they were filled with bewildering charts and complex jargon. They felt like a different language, alien to my life. I wanted to learn from real life, from people who had actually done it, who had built assets and made money work for them, not from dry textbooks or abstract theories. Then came the day I landed a new client, a magnificent estate tucked away on the quietest street. I'd never been here before, though I'd heard its reputation. The house was ancient, yet maintained absolute perfection. From the wrought iron fence without a speck of rust, to the rose bushes meticulously trimmed down to the last leaf, to the stone driveway gleaming like glass. This was Mr. Harrison's house. His name was whispered among service workers like me with a mix of reverence and apprehension. Mr. Harrison was notoriously demanding, obsessively meticulous about every single detail. A plumber once told me Mr. Harrison could hear a leaking pipe no one else noticed by sound alone. That was the kind of man he was, obsessed with details most of us miss. I killed my mower's engine and stepped into the sprawling garden. A different atmosphere enveloped me. Everything was in its precise place, with an almost obsessive precision. I was about to restart my engine when a deep, slow voice drifted from the porch. "Alex, I presume?" I turned. An older man, tall and slender, with impeccably combed white hair. His face was unexpressive, but his eyes were razor sharp. It was Mr. Harrison. He wasn't in gardening clothes or work attire like other homeowners. He wore a carefully buttoned dress shirt and pressed trousers, even when inspecting lawns. In his hand, a small measuring tape for grass. "Yes, sir," I managed, suddenly feeling strangely small. Mr. Harrison said nothing more. He walked slowly onto the lawn, his eyes sweeping every square foot, pausing at spots I, a professional, hadn't even noticed. He bent down, his long, slender finger touching a small clump of grass at the flower bed's edge. Then he pulled out the tape and carefully measured, as if weighing a precious item. "The grass here, it's a millimeter too long," Mr. Harrison stated, his voice calm, yet cold enough to make me flinch. "And the edge here, a bit ragged. You see, the cut isn't sharp enough. It ruins the symmetry of the flower bed." He pointed to a border that, to me, looked perfect. In his eyes, it was a severe flaw. A surge of intense frustration hit me. Just 1 millimeter? Ragged where? I'd been doing this for years. My hard work, my sweat, dismissed over this? I wanted to throw the mower down and walk away immediately. This old man is just as demanding as they say. I'll finish this, take his money, and never come back. I'd rather starve than work for someone so obsessively demanding. My face tightened, my lips pressed into a thin line, my hands clenching the mower handles. The physical fatigue suddenly felt much heavier, burdened by mental exasperation and anger. But then, something shifted inside me. As I grudgingly knelt to examine the grass Mr. Harrison had pointed to, I realized he wasn't wrong. There genuinely were a few slightly longer blades, and that edge wasn't as crisp as it could be. Mr. Harrison wasn't fabricating anything or being difficult for no reason. He genuinely saw the tiny details that I, a professional, had simply overlooked. A reluctant curiosity began to sprout within me, slowly crushing the initial annoyance. I looked up, watching Mr. Harrison's retreating back as he slowly walked inside. I scanned his entire estate, the perfectly white walls without a smudge, the windows without a speck of dust. Everything was meticulously cared for, to absolute perfection, as if every brick, every blade of grass, every tiny detail was worth its weight in gold. This wasn't just ordinary property. It was a constantly maintained masterpiece, an asset cared for with extreme, almost reverent precision. Its value wasn't accidental. It was cultivated, protected by obsessive attention to detail. I remembered the plumber's story about Mr. Harrison hearing tiny leaks. What if these demands weren't just pickiness, but an extraordinary standard of excellence, a philosophy of life? And what built that standard? I'd never thought about lawn care this way, not just as a paycheck, but as part of a larger, flawless picture, a valuable asset, where every single detail contributed to a higher, more sustainable value. This was the discipline of wealth I'd never encountered, a lesson no school ever taught. I restarted the mower, but my movements weren't the unconscious toil of before. I cut slower, more carefully, inspecting each pass, each corner, each blade of grass. I didn't just want him to find no fault. Deep down, it wasn't just about avoiding criticism. I was trying to understand, trying to learn, trying to emulate the obsessive precision I'd just witnessed. I realized, annoying as it was, Mr. Harrison had just given me my first lesson in absolute quality, in sharp observation, and in the value of perfection, things no school had ever taught me. Perhaps this was the practical learning I so desperately craved. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the freshly Harrison-perfected lawn, I wiped the last bead of sweat from my brow. The job was done, and I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Mr. Harrison reappeared on the porch. He said nothing, only offered a slight, almost imperceptible nod. It was a silent acknowledgement of satisfaction. I sighed in relief, not just for finishing, but for passing a test. But a seed of curiosity had been planted in my mind, a seed of breaking free. How did Mr. Harrison acquire all of this? Where did his money come from? And could these crazy standards be part of the secret I was looking for to make my money multiply instead of me having to break my back for every dollar? That question swirled in my head as I loaded my mower back into the truck, its roar now louder than the old pickup's engine, and louder even than my worries about a future of only physical labor. You're probably thinking I'm pragmatic, perhaps even overly opportunistic for latching onto a rich man like that. And I won't deny it. I am opportunistic. because it was precisely by seizing the opportunities that came my way, by clinging to them with everything I had, that I escaped the grinding poverty of my past. I faced true hardship. Hunger wasn't a concept. It was a daily reality. The fear of not having enough food, of not being able to help my family, fueled every decision. So when an opportunity, however small, presented itself, I didn't hesitate. I devoured it. That's how I got here, how I built this meager life. And I'm always looking for the next opportunity, the next leverage point, to propel my life to a new chapter, to break free from the invisible chains of working for a paycheck. I don't dream, not in the fluffy, wishful sense. I'm realistic. I'm pragmatic. And I have an insatiable hunger to be truly wealthy. Not just for myself, but to ensure that no one I care about ever has to know the desperation of scarcity again. This wasn't a choice, it was a necessity. And if being opportunistic is what it takes, then so be it. I was ready to learn. To adapt to do whatever was necessary to understand how money truly works. Beyond the sweat and toil,